So I think we're all set. We have a loaded agenda. Therefore, I don't want to keep ourselves too much delayed. Therefore, I'd like to kindly request my colleague Johanna to share her screen, where she will help me to run through the slides, majority of the slides. You can now, yes, see the introductory page. Uh, some housekeeping rules. We are recording these webinars. These webinars are organized in two different time zones on the same day. So we had the morning session for our Eastern Hemisphere colleagues, and this is the Western Hemisphere colleagues. By the end of this webinars, you will receive both recordings and the presentation. And you usually go through the whole presentation and then open the floor for interventions from other partners. And in case there are any immediate burning questions, feel free to type into the chat box. Today, I'm connecting from a unfamiliar logistical space. Therefore, I asked my colleague Johanna to help me in going through the slides. In our webinars, our presentation takes around 35 minutes, and depending on our agenda, we have colleagues from LGMA, the network, or members, also the partners, joining us and intervening, especially in some sections. We will follow this as well. In the morning, we had interventions from Liv from Bloomberg, and I'm delighted my colleague Megan Ross from Bloomberg will also join us today. We agreed that her intervention will be in the last quarter of the hour. But I see Megan is already online with us, so it's great that she's joining us. I also recognize my colleagues, Kate from ICLE Africa and Ula from GCOM, to provide us some updates on the agenda related to Climate Week. And my colleague Leah from UNHABITAT will also come in at the right moments during the presentation. So let's go to the next slide to go through our agenda for today. So this is repeating. Sometimes we have colleagues who are joining for the first time. So the first couple of slides, which I want to go fast, is a basic introduction to who we are and how we reach to this level of in time in terms of our advocacy and negotiations. Today's agenda will particularly focus on the national endorsements to our efforts on the town hall COPs. Very, very promising. We will go through the agenda of LGMA engagement in the Climate Week, the second Climate Week in Addis, and Africa Summit in Addis on the first week of September. We will hope to spend some time in the COP30 position. We have colleagues who have been involved in this process, so we will touch upon our progress on that. Some updates on the action agenda, and as mentioned, Megan will kindly brief us about the preparations for the local leaders forum in Rio, which is connected to Leaders Summit in Belém and COP30 in Belém, which we'll also discuss with Leah in terms of particularly the fourth Urban and Climate Ministerial, as well as Citizen Regions Hub. So next, who we are the voice of towns, cities, and regions in its entirety, the whole subnationals in the UNFCCC process since '95. We are one of the first three constituencies who have been involved in this process. We try to influence the negotiation outcomes. We help the champions to set the action agenda. We support the presidency so that their initiatives are complementing to each other, so that there's a continuity. And of course, the decisions are adopted by the parties. So with the countries who are friendly with our agenda, we have a close network. We are trying to make sure that the decisions adopted are reflecting our priorities and inputs, and this can only go through our partners in the friendly member states, which is the Friends of Multi-Level Action. Next, we have almost completed a phase which is more than 30 years. It's based on 4 phases that we have observed. The first couple of years, we left the legacy of Rio. We were recognized as a constituency, but the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol mechanisms did not foresee any role for us. So the first 10 years were relatively silent for us. Starting from Bali, when the countries decided to design the new phase after the Kyoto Protocol's first phase, we said that let's not repeat this mistake for the third time. The first global climate advocacy campaign of the subnationals was under the local government climate roadmap banner, which aimed to ensure recognition, engagement, and empowerment by the COP in Copenhagen. Excuse me. In 2009, Copenhagen was a failure, but we did not give up. We did not shy away. We said that we need multilateralism, and we even accelerated, as you see from these slides, inside and outside. New initiatives, new networks came in, and our first concrete achievement was the Paris Agreement, recognition of the importance of all levels of government in the preamble of the Paris Agreement. And as you can see, immediately when we were recognized, we have elevated our engagement, our initiatives as LGMA with the champions, with other processes. This bared its first results in the Glasgow Climate Pact. The term multi-level for the first time in the UNFCCC documents were incorporated in the preamble. In Dubai, we have the paragraph 161, which urges parties for multi-level action, supported by some other paragraphs on adaptation. And in Baku, we had achieved a very good atmosphere of collaboration on the mitigation in the urban space or urban system. So that's where we are now. Next slide. This is a process, as you have noticed, a year-round and even a years long of decades of long work. So there is a need for keeping us connected. The webinars are one tools for that. The bulletin is also something that we are using widely. We encourage you to subscribe so that all the documents, all the agendas you see mainly in these monthly webinars, you can also receive into your mailbox through the links and other information available. So and we have our own mailing channels and others interactions as well. Next, um, our website citiesenergies.org is the home page which captures all our engagement initiatives, the achievements, as well as our documentation, videos, bulletins daily from the COPs, so that you can explore and track all our progress. Next. Um, we every year we come with a prepared position which is related to negotiation agendas. We try to make this available before the COP so that especially our constituency members can use it also at the national level, so that when they come to the negotiations, they are much more aware and informed, both from our leaders' side, but also the governments that are listening or working with us. So we will follow the same spirit here. We'll touch this on shortly. Next, on site at the COPs, our home is the multi-level action and urbanization pavilion. This has been since Glasgow the practice, especially since Sharm el-Sheikh. We're also collaborating with UN Habitat on that, and we are very grateful for other partners who support this process. This is a 2 weeks from 9 a.m. until the evening. So this is the place where we strategize our negotiation inputs. We track the documents, but we also use the space to showcase our achievements, announce our initiatives or reports. So it is the place where we can network and we can also communicate our voice to the parties and other stakeholders of the UNFCCC. Next. COP30 has two fronts. One, to complete the commitments that were addressed in Dubai and Baku. So we have to be aware that this has to be now delivered. These commitments have to be delivered. But more importantly, there is also the deadline to submit the third edition of the National Determined Contributions, which is more or less the national climate plans. And this has to be prepared at home. So by the time they reach to COP30, all this has to be concluded at the capitals. Therefore, the process is both at the UN space, but also in particular at the national level. Next. The NDC, the second editions between Glasgow and onwards, we were relatively excited that there is a certain degree of engagement of urban components, but we all know that every country has a huge potential to improve their urban components and demonstrate multi-level action can help them. And of course, because of the Dubai agreement on paragraph 161, we are even more ambitious and have more responsibility to deliver this so that the new NDCs are much better than the previous ones. Is this the case like that now? Let's see the next slide. As of today, when I say today, it's August 20, there are around 30 countries who have submitted their NDCs. That's not a great number. It's worrying. In the last couple of weeks, there was only 4 new additions, which means around 150 countries have still not made their commitments documented at the national level, approved there through the domestic processes. But from another point of view, this gives us opportunity, which means we can still influence these NDCs. In that regard, what we have seen so far, next slide, is that especially through the endorsers of CHAMP, we have seen an increased recognition of the multi-level collaboration. There are numerous good references either directed to the CHAMP, or even if they're not endorsing CHAMP, they define how they are working with their local and regional governments, and there are really encouraging examples of making this new era is much more collaborative. However, as we all know, this is not enough, especially with the new ones. We are not sure. Therefore, our basic line is that we don't want to fall below the MDCs 2.0. So far, we are confident that it will be getting better, but there's a lot of work to do in the next 3 months, which is the next steps. Next stage, next slide. These are annual processes. Every year, the presidency is taking over the implementations, safeguarding the decisions, and then by the mid-year, the incoming presidency takes over. So officially, it's still the Azerbaijan government, but Brazil is taking much more leadership, and they are introducing a number of tools, mechanisms, the global mutual, the envoys, and the circles. And we are very, very happy that we are connected to all levels of leadership to the Brazilian government. That gives us the hope that we are much, much more confident that the outcome will be promising. So let's see. There are 30 special envoys. Next slide. 3 of them are related to our agenda, a subnational focus, an urban poor focus, an urban solutions envoy, Philip Young. We have met him in Bonn, we have met him in London, and he even joined us in Kuala Lumpur, which we'll discuss shortly. There are also regional envoys, and I assume, or I hope, our LGMA partners across the world are introduced to these regional envoys as well. So next slide. We said that if we want to get a result in or at COP, we have to be active before. That's why we're tracking our engagement in 3 work streams. One, the green ones at the bottom are the ones that are led by the networks of local governments, LGMA constituency. The advantage is that we shape the agenda, we define the outcomes, but of course, these are not official documents. Then there comes the second route, which is the blue ones, the UNFCCC, but also the UN Habitat, UN Environment Assembly, SDGs, New York, all across the UN system. We have a connection to the multi-level action on urbanization and connecting to climate change. And the yellow ones are the ones led by the groups of countries which do not necessarily have to follow the UN procedures. It has its pros and cons. Those that you may be familiar are the G7 and G20, and BRICS as well. So these are the places where we want to make sure that the mechanisms are engaging our constituency in the most appropriate manner, depending on the individual, the structure of this process. Next. So on the way to Belém, by the early June, we have announced our vision. We said that we're now rallying for a local to global COP30 and beyond. And in that regard, we said that our priority of activities throughout the year will be focusing on the activities before Belém to make sure that we are mobilized at the national level. We will focus on the negotiations in Belém, and we will help to shape the agenda or the legacy beyond Belém, because COP30 presidents already have cleared. Brazil is well known with its legacy from Rio summits in '92 and 2012. And the vision is also, and the geopolitics is also very suitable, so that it's time to have a new momentum and a new thinking so that we can reflect to the needs of this new era, which is, of course, in the climate emergency with 1.5 degrees already threshold over for global warming, but with the opportunities through multi-level action and urbanization, we could be much more confident that we can reach our Paris Agreement goals. Next slide. So this was how we approached to the mid-year talks in Bonn. We were particularly active in the first week. We had CHAMP roundtables. Daring Cities was instrumental. We had engaged in numerous official negotiation sessions with LGMA interventions and our side events. And we also had a brief video statement in addition to our closing statement about the assessment, which we see, especially with the action agenda, we see a much more visibility for urban development and multi-level action in the outcomes. But we are worried, of course, the current logistical challenges can be a biggest barrier for the success of COP. Unfortunately, there are still some bottlenecks in that. So that's why we have to energize in the next couple of weeks. We have to give even more momentum if we want to achieve our goals. So next slide. And that's why we have announced our 100 Days to COP30, which was kicked off last week in Kuala Lumpur, which we'll touch upon that one. This is also a color-coded, but this time it's mainly month by month. And you can see we have LGMA-led events like Urban 20 Summit or India Rise Summit or Climate Action Week in Rio or New York. But we have also UN events like UN Environment Ministers Forum, UN Forum of Mayors, more as well as the UN Climate Weeks and others. So this is really this gives us the message that we have to use every opportunity. And the bottom line is that these couple of months should be the moment where we have to make national governments to speak clearly and vocally about how they want to see multi-level action and urbanization in the outcomes. The reason is that COP30 presidency, when they take off the presidency role, of course, they have to be respectful and they cannot impose if they do not hear evidence from the parties. We are very, very excited that the Brazilian leadership with Champ endorser, Baku Continuity Coalition partner, as well as climate federalism. But if we are aiming to achieve a universal deal that is combining global north and south, we have to have everyone to be comfortable. Therefore, it cannot be imposed only by presidency. That's why for every meeting, we have to make sure that we have national governments to speak up more widely and vocally. And here we have the first examples. Next slide. Um, the last couple of weeks was really very interesting. By the time we finished Bonn, we had the first endorsement for our town hall COPs, the bottom-up initiative for connecting climate action at all levels, by the South African Minister of Environment. They have endorsed the process and they said that this is the entry door for multi-level inputs to the South African NDC. The NDC is not being prepared yet. That's for it's perfectly timing so that through the Minister of Environment we can influence. And we are grateful for our collaboration with SALGA, the National Association of South African Local Governments. The second one came from a different community, which is the Ministry of Housing of Malaysia. Malaysia is the chair of ASEAN this year, but also the president of UN Habitat Assembly. So in Kuala Lumpur, which we see the outcome declaration announced by the minister himself, is giving us the exact feeling and the mission that it's not just the ministers of environment who are the main ones to design the NDCs, but ministers of housing will be speaking more loudly. And of course, we are building on our experience in the past 3 years through the urban and climate ministerials, but now it's time to bring the national engagement so that they speak early, especially when we know the challenge of logistics in Belém. In this picture, you see the Minister of Housing, Philip Young, ICLEI Secretary General, Mayor of Kuala Lumpur, which is an excellent example of multi-level collaboration. And there were also representatives from Minister of Environment at the technical level. The third picture is another level of government, which is President of Kiribati. It is significantly elevating our vision to a new level because the president himself has united with Kilga and Commonwealth Local Government ICLEI to jointly convene the Maneoba Town Hall COP, which is the Kiribati version of the Town Hall COP. And they have met with ministers, they have met with councillors and stakeholders, community leaders, and they said that Kiribati is aiming to develop this new era together, collective. That's exactly environment ministers, urban ministers, and presidents. This has to be increased in the coming weeks and months. So next slide. How we want to achieve it is something that is now giving us even more confidence because the Kuala Lumpur Town Hall COP concluded with a call to action announced by the Minister of Housing of Malaysia. He has addressed 5 key commitments. Of course, he is aiming to mobilize this in his capacity as the Malaysian minister, but he will also use his power as the president of UN Habitat Assembly, which is ministers of urbanization across the world. He aims to convene, or he invites countries to convene national editions of urban and climate ministers in October, which means that wherever they decide in their NDCs, there will be an opportunity to discuss how they will implement collectively through multi-level collaboration, how they will incorporate urban agenda there, which gives us the hope that we can now approach the several countries be it champ endorsers, be or not champ, non-champ endorsers, so that we demonstrate that this is a collective effort. They are inviting all local individuals to come in their own town hall COPs. They are also suggesting that they will be supporting the Cities and Regions Hub and the Axis 4 of the presidency. They would like to convene a network of urban ministers of climate. This is extremely valuable because it's not just every year at the end of the year you meet in a ministerial. You have to follow up. And urban ministers, because UN Habitat also adopted a new strategy, now they have to be much more structured, much more connected, and much more institutionalized. And this will also give them more power to follow up and implementation in Belém and onwards. And that's also something that we are very hopeful. And of course, they also finally said that they are supporting that UNFCCC officially creates a mechanism to discuss all these in a more structured manner. Next. Um, Now, we are getting to some news from our partners. By the way, as far as I know, Joanna, just correct me. Leah is on the line. Is she joining us today? She
She's
was
here,
in the
yeah.
morning. Okay, Leah, as we agreed, if you wish, we can come back at the end in the urban ministerial agenda, but you can also refer to the discussions in Kuala Lumpur and onwards as well. But if it's okay for you, Ula was saying that she would be connecting by the half an hour, but is Kate on the line at the moment? Kate Strachan from IFE Africa? Because Ula may be a bit late.
I don't see Kate at the moment.
Claudia, is she online? No. Okay, what I can do, I can briefly tell you that the Climate Week is advancing. I will not spend too much time because Ula promised to join us online in the by the 30th minute or so. So let's skip this, but there is a promise that we will come back to this so that we save our time and use our time effectively. So let's go to the next slide. So let's use this time for to hear from our partners who are working in the drafting groups of our key positions towards COP30, LGMA positions. Let's remember, in on the way to Bonn, in the mid-year talks, we have prioritized that we will work in before Belém, we will focus in Belém, the negotiation, and we will help to shape the agenda or the legacy beyond Belém. But when it comes to the positions, which means that you have to document what exactly you want outcomes from the decisions or negotiations, the narrative has to be a bit different. Therefore, we agreed that this key positions will be structured with, which will start with the negotiation topics, which means these are the topics which already have either a draft decision text on the table or a working negotiation track that is already built up in the past few years, or there's officially a proposal on the table. And the agendas in this category includes climate finance, how to localize finance is our discussion. Loss and damage, how we can make sure our cities and regions, especially in the global south, can benefit from this new mechanism. Adaptation, it's a core area for us. We have been working a lot. There's also the recognition of the Paris Agreement. Mitigation in two sections. One, this year's mitigation work program focusing on waste. This is particularly important because you may have heard the global plastics treaty negotiations failed in Geneva last week, primarily even because of the influence of the fossil fuel industry, which is reported by many experts. This means the gap that is now created by the INC failure can be complemented if there is a positive outcome from this mitigation work program in Addis in September. We have seen this experience in the past. Last year, mitigation work program were focused on cities and urban systems, and they delivered an impressive result as well. And the second part of the mitigation is this commitments from Dubai, the all commitments from fossil fuel phase out. And here we are worried that many of the commitments are either not delivered or backtracking. And our mission is to demonstrate that we can help countries to advance in their commitments. So we have to put evidence on how this could be possible or what is our examples. The second group of negotiation, we cannot say negotiation as such, and that's the beauty and the beast of this, because these topics do not have a home, do not have a regular negotiated official mechanism or agenda item, which means there can be a lot of discussions, but they don't have a home to settle down or land in. These are the topics that is also very speaking to our heart as local and regional governments. The evolving concepts on food, informality, culture, nature, ocean. These are the topics that we have been working a lot. And outside the UNFCCC, there is also a lot of things moving on. So we have to make sure the discussions now feed from what's going on outside, and the UNFCCC complements and even accelerates these actions. That's what we have to focus on. Of course, there's a big topic, which is our position for multi-level action and urbanization. I hope Amalia or Toby will be giving us updates on what's going on in our latest progress. Action agenda, we will touch upon it. We have to provide inputs and engagement. And of course, the UN systems revision and improvement. Here, we are recommending that we focus on what is at stake, what is the concept related to climate agenda or climate emergency, how is UNFCCC addressing, how can LGMA contribute, and what are our good practices. So if we can make sure that the first two topics, the sub items there, can be built around this way of approach, then our position could be very, very solid and very, very inspirational for parties and our delegation. The third part, which will be a simply annex, because this is the work that will be completed by the time we reach the Belém. And here we focus on the CHAMP implementation. We will focus on town hall COPs, subnational transition plans, and country platforms for localizing finance. So let me stop here because as I said, I'm having some difficulties because I don't see the full list of colleagues who are on the line today. But those who are part of the working groups, they had their first meetings in the morning. We heard from our colleagues from Committee of the Regions, GCOM, Regions 4, and FMDV under 2 coalition who report on that. I just want to check whether any of them are now with us so that we can hear their updates from their works. Joanna, do you see any hands raised from any of our partners as of now?
Not at the moment, but do feel free to raise your hand and I can open your mic.
Let me check. I'm now seeing the participant list much better. Of course, I don't want to put anyone on fire, but we also wanted to make use. This is the moment to share the latest updates. So what I can comfortably say is that, especially the groups that have been working a lot on the multi-level action and urbanization, they have convened consultations in Bonn, inside LGMA, with the stakeholders. They have now convened the second draft of the position paper, which particularly received inputs from the decisions from Nairobi, Bonn, and then Kuala Lumpur, and they are now bringing it forward. I see Carlos here on the finance. He's also part of the finance group. Let's hear from Carlos, and I see Oliver as well. So let's start with Carlos. Carlos, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, hi. So no, because Toby seems not to be in the call. Just to summarize, what we had a first meeting of the working group on finance. We are working on the draft positioning with on the basis of what we aggregated in terms of advocacy during the SB in Bonn. Mainly 4 important chapters. The idea is to work more precisely on the financial architecture we need for delivering climate action at the local level, through and also to integrate the conclusions of a diverse set of conferences at the international level and moves from the presidency, especially FFD4, the Sevilla commitment, especially so on country platforms. The second one on national and subnational development banks, meaning financial intermediaries. The third one on capacity building, capacity development opportunities and options, especially at the national level, meaning localizing the capacity to make sure that project preparation, financial engineering, and innovation, financial innovation is closer to the needs. And the fourth component is regulatory, what we call regulatory sandboxes, meaning bringing in ministries of finance who would like to pilot test new concepts, new ways of working with local and regional governments, because that's one of the main impediments in the collaboration with national governments, because ministries of finance, I mean on financing at least, ministries of finance usually do not trust or confide in local governments to lead something on finance and be responsible for the guarantee, for the credits, the debts, etc., etc. So we are exploring these four components. Of course, the idea is not to make a report on each of these solutions, but more like to try to address and inspire the needs from national negotiators to understand better what is at stake and how much we can fit in what they have already agreed in those conferences like Sevilla.
Excellent. Thanks, Carlos. And as you said, this is the debate about 1.3 trillion. And we also know in Brazil, they have created the Circles of Finance Minister, which is complementing the Finance Ministers for Climate Network, which is run by World Bank. The importance is that this finance circle is led by Fernando Haddad, Minister of Finance of Brazil, which is the former mayor of Sao Paulo. And we also agreed that we have to connect to the Minister of Finance in a more active way. In Sevilla, this discussion was also about this 1.3 trillion. What does it mean for the global north and global impacts to the global cities and states from the global north, how they can contribute? And we have very, very happily heard the commitment from under two coalition joining this global solidarity levies, which is trying to use the regional trading mechanisms, any um, any revenues from there could be contributing. We have seen how this can be complementary to the national or as part of this. So these are also the topics that we have addressed, and I'm sure we will move forward. Before I give the floor to Oliver, I see here she has mentioned some points, but I would like to give him the floor. One thing that we have, it's of course we said that if you go to the presentation, Johanna, once again, we had a timeline for ourselves that this moment is the one that we will share more updates. We have our shared file, but we also know in August a number of our colleagues were absent due to their summer breaks or other reasons. And we are also aware that we are not fully there in terms of concrete text. Therefore, we agreed that these drafting groups will convene again next week on the 27th of August so that we see much more progress, especially after this calls, and we can give one more week for them. And we will present this first consolidated, let's say, draft during our deliberations in Addis. And afterwards, after hearing some feedbacks, we will aim to announce this before the New York City Climate Week. So that is the mechanism we will build. And we have seen that, for example, our colleagues on loss and damage process also convened. Just Transition have made their new submission. There will be additional moments, especially with discussion we had with the biodiversity community. Ingrid is currently in ASEAN Biodiversity Conference in Singapore. So we still have some more time, and that's not finalized yet. That's one point I'd like to address. But we can also consider that if we are not ready, we can remove some of those agendas. In the next couple of slides, I have more points on that. But Oliver, do you still want to come in?
If you don't mind, Yunus, it's a brief update, but you're the judge whether it's good now or if you prefer me to do it later.
Let's do it because I just saw Ula also back as she's now online. So after your intervention, we will go to Ula so that she will take us through the Climate Week in Addis. So let's hear from you.
Thank you, Yunus. And aside from thanking you and congratulating you for the wonderful work you're giving here, sharing all that information for all of us, I just want to say, of course, you know, I'm from Montreal and biodiversity, so I just want to say that the city of Cali is now also connecting biodiversity with climate on a very strong way and collaborating with Quebec. And of course, you know, the road goes from Belém to Yerevan next year. So I'm provoking the links. And more specifically, I want to share with you that Brazil is not only your friend at the federal level, but also at the state level. You know that the Association of State Environmental Authorities in Brazil has a very active climate working group. And the good news is that their climate working group is now collaborating with the biodiversity working group to provide an integrated approach. And these people have done me the immense honor of naming me an advisor to that collaboration. So in as much as the Association of Brazilian State Environmental Authorities can contribute to the roadmap, and of course we will be in touch with Ingrid and with you, and also with Alejandro Robles in Colombia for the Biodiversity Week, and also, of course, with the Rodrigos in Brazil to make sure that those connections continue. Yeah. So again, thank you for your work. And just to say that the nature-based solutions and the joint ways to look at risk, you know, and emergencies, climate-related and nature-based emergencies, nature is also the cheapest, always, solution. So thanks for that.
Excellent. Excellent. That's very good, because you may have heard we have an LGMA working group at the national level in Brazil. They will have their 4th meeting in early September. We know the Brazilian states are also attending this, so it will be very good that they also come up with this update there. And congratulations to that. It's good to hear you're back in the cycle again, and look forward to connecting again. Ulla, thanks for joining us. Johanna, can you take this presentation again and go back to the slide where we have the Climate Week and Africa Climate Summit screenshots or for agenda? Ulla, you are leading our delegation there. This is a very brief snapshot, but you have more details. So the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Really nice to see you all. And I'm co-leading this with Megan from ICLEI and the team in ICLEI, which have been, extremely engaged on the agendas as well. So just really want to acknowledge this is a team effort. And I know many of you on this call as well will be on the ground and will be contributing to some of the sessions that I'm about to go through. So the UNFCCC Climate Week 2, it's really the continuation of this new model of the climate weeks that UNFCCC has been exploring, and those are global climate weeks. So many of the events you see on the agenda are actually directed to the global audience, and so-called mandated events are even the ones where there is a requirement to bring the parties, the national governments, to those discussions to ensure inclusivity. So you will see the Just Transition work program dialogue. There is a mitigation work program towards the end of the week. Those are mandated events where we will not only see the region represented, but also other countries from the region will be coming on the ground, which is, I think, important to acknowledge. What we will, however, see is that the examples and a lot of discussion will probably be focused on the regional case studies, because of the number of representatives from the region that will be very likely present on the ground. And we saw that in Panama. It is likely to happen here in Addis as well. And so just to very quickly give you an overview, we have a representation from the LGMA across those mandated events. If you are interested who those people are, you can go to the LGMA COP30 tracker. There, everything is sort of laid out on there. On the Just Transition Work Program on capacity building for finance, there are representatives from our side, the CHAMP support unit. We have been collaborating mostly on the NDC clinics. Those are events co-organized by UNDP, UNEP, NDC Partnership, and GIZ, with a view of really building capacity in the countries as they move into the implementation phase of the NDCs. So those NDC clinics last year focused on development of the documents, and this year they are focusing on implementation. What is interesting is that they've innovated slightly in terms of the way in which the countries will take forward the inputs on those NDC clinics. They will be sort of asked to almost do a homework on the ground and prepare like a little report where with learnings of what they found out during the clinics that they then can take to the country back and implement it, which is something that wasn't really present in Panama, but will be present now. And sort of our team is really there to help push the multi-level governance as one of the ways in which those NDCs can be implemented. So those certainly will be elements that we highlight. But much more to say. So I'll go very quickly to the middle of the week, which is around the implementation forum. And again, it's really focused on solutions. And implementation forum does have a slightly more regional focus. The presidency events that are being organized are much more related to some of the solutions for the continent. So you will see them on the screenshot, and I'm happy to share also the program that's available on the UNFCCC website. We also have those implementation labs. And again, innovation from Panama. In Panama, we did not have the roundtable for subnationals, and we did not have the implementation lab on sustainable cities. So it's a really big success that we are now having those two components. Because those topics are extremely important. And I think the success of the roundtable that happened in Bonn have really stimulated the desire to do a roundtable in Addis as well. So that's middle segment, the blue one that you can see on the slide, is sort of the program that's non-mandated events. They are more focused on implementation. And I know a lot of you in the community are also participating in those. And then towards the end of the climate week, we are going into another segment of mandated events and other NDC clinics to wrap up the week. I'm not going to go into much more detail because I want to respect the time, but let me pivot to the second component, which is Africa Climate Summit, which is a related event, but an independent event that is being hosted by the government of Ethiopia. And it's very much a moment for the African countries to come together and discuss their position, their stand ahead of COP30. And it is much more political and regional focused. There will be a lot of space for civil society. And I know there are many side events that many of you will be putting on. There are pavilions that are being hosted. Colleagues at WRI have a pavilion. There are events on multi-level governance, on informality. So all of this is now being sort of finalized. But the outcome of this summit will be a communique. So I think what is important to highlight is that many of our efforts and some of the events we are putting forward will actually feed into that communique. That will guide the African Union and African countries as they go into those fall months and discussions. So I think it's important for us to not forget about that very important outcome. And when, as a community, we show up in Addis, we should make sure that we feed in our, some of the vision paper that Yunus outlined earlier, some of the visions we have already outlined to that discussion, to really make sure that the multi-level governance is strongly coming forth through that communique. And, there will be many events. I'm not going to maybe go into much detail. Maybe, Yunus, we can circulate some of that in an email. But I hope this was a sufficient update, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Sula. And in the morning, we agreed with Kate that by next week, we could prepare the LGMA agenda and delegation and make it available in the LGMA bulletin. And we can spread so that we are much more clear about how we are engaged there. So, and wish you the best of luck. The Africa Summit, the regional summit and week is also very important because on the way to Brazil, the logistics was a huge challenge, and African nations were one of the most vocal. So let's hope that by the time this summit is convened, the concerns are addressed, and also we are making much more progress on that. So I know Megan has been on the line for since the beginning. I don't want to keep her too long, but I would suggest we have a couple of more slides on the action agenda, but I want to keep it at the end. Maybe it's going to be even better because after Megan, we will hear from Leah about the urban ministerial. So, Johanna, Megan, first of all, thanks a lot for your time and joining us here. We, in the morning, heard from Leah, so she preferred to share her screen, and we are flexible how you want to proceed. And once again, thanks for joining us. I hope you can turn on your camera so that our colleagues can see you.
Fantastic. It's so great to be here, and I've really enjoyed listening to the entire meeting. There's so much going on, and the LGMA is just this really fantastic space. So thank you, Eunice, for the opportunity to join today. And yes, I will share my screen just briefly, because I think if you're a visual learner like me, it's helpful to have a couple things to look at. So I just wanted to give a very brief overview of the partnership between Bloomberg Philanthropies and the COP30 presidency, specifically in terms of the COP30 Local Leaders Forum, which will be taking place in Rio just before the negotiations in Berlin. So I just wanted to note that the partnership is really focused in these four pillars of values and intentions that we share. We're really focused on leveraging private finance and mobilizing capital for climate action. We're focused on accelerating the global clean energy transition, tripling renewables, increasing efficiency in energy. We're focused on conserving natural areas and sustainably using the ocean, nature-based solutions, and everything in that sector. And we're also especially focused, as I know you all are as well, on catalyzing city, state, and subnational action, which there's such a strong piece of momentum for right now. And we have a long history of supporting COPs at Bloomberg Philanthropies, from when Mike Bloomberg was mayor himself to the institution of the philanthropy and other ways. And like yourselves, the fantastic timelines that Eunice shared, there's been so much development over the past several years for urbanization, for multi-level action, and for the participation and really meaningful substantive participation of cities and regions in COP processes. And so this year, Bloomberg and the COP30 presidency will be co-hosting the Local Leaders Forum in Rio de Janeiro from the 3rd through the 5th of November. Again, just kind of preceding the events in Berlin, when we can gather a large number of participants that are not necessarily official parties. And particularly, we're looking to gather hundreds of mayors, governors, and subnational leaders, similar to what we did in Dubai a couple of years ago, but different now and really distinct to the moment. And so across these 3 days, we'll have different elements of programming with different partners leading those elements. The first day will begin with the World Mayors Summit. The second day will continue programming for mayors, but also add programming for governors in the Global States and Regions Summit. And we'll also focus on some regional summits on Tuesday, including dedicated space for Brazil subnationals, for Chinese subnationals, and United States subnationals. Those 2 days will also close with large receptions where folks can get together, celebrate, network, get ready for the time together in Berlin. And then the closing day of the Local Leaders Forum on Wednesday. We're planning to begin the day with the CHAMP high-level political dialogue, the closed-door meeting for CHAMP endorsers focused on implementation of the multi-level principles in that coalition, and also join everyone together for a big tent event of the high-level closing plenary. And at this time, we'll have a joint statement delivered from subnational leaders there on the stage to national leaders who will be present, and have some local leaders awards for those who have done some really exemplary work in climate action around the world. And then, of course, the delegation and anybody who will be moving to Belém for the negotiations will have an opportunity in the afternoon to travel there to be in Belém on the 6th. And the delegation we're referring to is a specific focused group of subnational leaders that the philanthropy is supporting to go to Belém to take part in those early parts of the process. So, and I'll just close to say that we're really excited about the opportunity of the forum to reinforce multilateralism. There's such an important position or opportunity for subnational leaders to really enhance this, to celebrate solutions, share the real solutions and opportunities for cutting emissions and improving public health across all sectors that show up in cities and states and regions, and to accelerate implementation of the Paris Agreement. It's just critically important for ourselves, for our future, to make sure that we keep our eye on that prize. I will stop here, and I know there's a lot more to cover. So Eunice, over to you.
Thank you, Megan, both for your time, for sharing these updates, but also on behalf of all Bloomberg Philanthropies, who have been a continuous champion and leader for all our efforts. As you heard, it's a work in progress, especially I think in the next couple of weeks, there will be more updates in terms of participation. And we will stay tuned for that, especially the bridge to Belém, as you have heard from Megan. This has to feed into the Belém, and of course, there will also be a delegation in Belém of subnational. So we have to make sure, or we are aiming to make sure that this is the same family in appearing and voicing the same messages, and then making the collaborative effort as a success. And this gives us the chance. Now we can give the floor to Leah, because then she will take us through the plans for the fourth ministerial, urban and climate ministerial, led by UN Habitat. Leah, thanks for joining us. And as mentioned in the morning, thanks for joining us after a short or long, depending on how you interpret it, break, and for a good cause. And we are so happy that both of you are so good in shape, and your new energy is giving us even more empowerment. So let's hear from you, Leah.
Thank you so much, Yunus, and thank you for the warm welcome back. And it's definitely giving me also a reason to fight for our future. So that's for sure. So warm welcome also from my side. Great to be with you here, and thanks, Yunus, for these super helpful updates, and also Megan, Ula, really helpful to hear about these all of these developments. Since Megan talked about the importance of visual overviews, let me also allow me to share my screen and just give you a brief visual aid on the ministerial meeting. But now I'm, of course, there we go, having too many tabs open. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. I mean, I think it doesn't come as this overview of the thematic days is probably not a surprise for anybody, but just as a recap, 10th and 11th of November are the days dedicated to cities and local governments, of course, with a whole bunch of other themes. And that also means that the ministerial meetings on urbanization and climate change will be landing at these days. Maybe also to flag, I'm happy to give an overview of these ministerial meetings, but I also see Ambassador da Costa on the line. So not to call you out, but maybe there's also something that you might want to complement to what I'm about to say here. As a reminder, what we're really wanting to do, UN Habitat, the Ministry of Cities, the COP30 presidencies, and many of the partners that we are mobilizing for this ministerial meeting, is using this as an opportunity to bring together communities of thought leadership. So what does that mean? Really bringing together ministers, mayors, leaders that can showcase leadership, that can showcase examples of what they have done, best practices that can inspire further implementation, which is, of course, in line with the action and implementation-oriented vision of the COP30 presidency. So we are mobilizing lots of partners to support us in this endeavor. And it's, of course, great that I'm speaking right after Megan, because of one of the big interests is to make sure that whatever is being discussed in Rio can also be carried to Belém, can be carried, the messages can be carried, but also some of the leaders who will be present in Rio can hopefully also plan to travel to Belém to bring these messages then also in person to the ministerial, to the urban days, and to COP30 overall. So how we're conceptualizing this is quite similar to what we did at COP29. So 4 round tables, one on housing and the transformation of informal settlements for just urban transition, really also bringing this housing and informal settlements agenda to the COP process and to the COP agenda. So it's also some agenda setting here that we're hoping to do. Then the second one on science research and innovation in cities, that's linked to the IPCC special report that's currently under production and gaining the political momentum also in support of this process. The third one is on financing the implementation of NDCs in cities and regions. As we've been discussing today quite a bit, is that, of course, now NDCs 3.0 are being developed, but then they also will need to be implemented. And how do we finance that in cities and regions and with cities and regions? The fourth one is cities, nature, and climate, also acknowledging that this is an Amazonian COP, also offering the opportunity to link this to COP16, the biodiversity COP, and all of these engagements there. And then also flagging that we're working with UNEP and the Global ABC and the partners there to ensure that we can align also with the Buildings Ministerium. All of this will be tied up in a high-level closing plenary, really using this as the big celebratory moment on urban climate action. On this roadmap that we have collectively built throughout 2025, looking ahead, looking back, celebrating champ endorsers, celebrating where do we stand on the urban content of the NDCs, where do we stand on the NDCs more general, building the roadmap to WOF, and really using this as an opportunity for local leaders and ministers to engage around this big celebration. You can really also see this in this vision. We're trying to visualize this a lot around more discussion, more engagement, more in-depth conversations that can be curated as part of this. I will leave you with one call to action, an invitation to contribute. We, of course, would want to make sure that the local leaders and also ministers and other leaders that you're working with can be showcased here and that they can be showcased at the ministerial meeting. So would love to hear who do you know is already there at COP and who's already planning to attend, but then also who would be a good leader to bring to these ministerial meetings that can share, that first of all fits that vision, but can also showcase and share messages that that the world needs to hear. So we'll be working with Yunus to make sure that this list for speaker suggestions is coming your way. And as a last thing, on a side note, we are working right now, of course, at least one part of this ministerial will be taking place on the 11th. For those of you who would want to plan, I'm already with the roundtables taking place first and then the closing plenary, but also still looking into options potentially in hosting some of these parts on the 10th. So that's still to be confirmed. 10th of the afternoon potentially, and then the 11th for sure, which is as I'm already propagating my tagline, 11/11 for SDG 11 is just a great comms tagline for leading up to this really exciting day. And of course, also with that, and I know this is where Yunus will go next, is the opportunity to link this to the Cities and Regions Hub, making sure that the conversations that we have as part of this ministerial meeting, but also that the conversations that we have in trying to get working towards getting cities and regions stronger into the UNFCCC process and institutionalizing this ministerial meeting can also land in the hub, bringing together negotiators with representatives from the local level, and yeah, having these conversations there. So with that, back to you, Yunus.
Excellent, Leah. Thanks a lot. Johanna, let's go through the last couple of seconds with the remaining slides. And first of all, also thank you, Leah. As you have heard, the Rio, the Leaders Summit in Belém, and COP in Belém are part of the same puzzle, let's say. If you go one slide before, Johanna, the COP continues for 2 weeks. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Go to the next slide, to the hub. Go next one. One more up before. Yes, no, yeah, that's it. Exactly. So we will continue to be opening the space. It's the name is Cities and Regions Hub with Minister of Cities, Habitat and Clay, so that to make sure we are present for 2 full weeks. Once again, for the first time, we are so early in the agenda. It's even more important that we remain in touch with the champ endorsers, non-champ countries, Baku Continuity Coalition, ministers of urbanization, minister of climate throughout the 2 weeks, so that the final result feeds to us our goals. Before closing, I have slides on the action agenda, but the point is that it's evolving concept. What we said, if you go to the slide before, I had a slide on, yes, this the presidency is working in a new mechanism. There are 30 groups, each have their own secretariats, and obviously there is a challenge of coordinating in this limited time zones. But the idea is that will be shaping the future, and that's what will be discussed in Belém and onwards. And it's part of our feedbacks for LGMA. I know several partners have been working on inputs. We will share next. By the time we meet next Wednesday, we will share some of our drafts. And in basic terms, if you go to the next slide, there's 3 lines. We could foresee that this action agenda evolution should now be structured. Go to the next slide, the other one. Uh, Next, this previous slide was the all the decisions that have been happening by the presidencies, the decisions by the different UNSCC bodies. In short, we want these now integrated. It cannot be continued like independent in silos. And this is the moment where Belém, when Brazil and the global south and a very powerful champ multi-level action country, could be the moment to bring all these into a consolidated work and then connect to the IPCC results in 2027. This gives us that we have a 2 years ahead, so that Belém should lay the ground for that. An action agenda should reflect on that. If you go to the next slide, that is more in the evolution of Rio Conventions. Let's not waste time there. Go to the next slide, the other one. Yes, a potential LGMA response could be on 3 points. One, to make sure a structured dialogue from the climate weeks, from the June, the New York agendas, that is all now concentrated with the NDCs 3.0. That's the first thing we would like to see. We can wish to see. We can say that the structured dialogue should also have a structured engagement for all 6 axes with the engagement of local and subnational governments. At the moment, there's no clear process for that, and that's why we can come in as LGMA. And third, all these cannot continue like that. The funds raised by the presidencies for their own processes should reach to the people on the ground. The initiatives, the partners who are delivering these results should receive technical and financial support, so that this is not a talk shop, but really delivering results on the ground. With this in mind, there is once again an announcement that next week we will continue our discussion on the position. I'm so sorry that we have not made to cover all of it, but as Lea mentioned, I see Ambassador da Costa online. Ambassador, I don't want to pressure you, but we are always delighted to have your leadership, and I'm so happy that you are here with us. You had a huge support to Philip Young in Kuala Lumpur. If you wish, like a closing remark, we will be more than happy to hear from you. But it's also okay because you are busy, and I know you may be handling some multitasking. This ad hoc invitation may not be so suitable for you. But I didn't want to lose this opportunity. Joanna, do you see Ambassador da Costa on the line? Whether
We can see him. I cannot hear him.
Yeah, as I said, the good news for our constituents is that Ambassador da Costa was with us in this webinar. So this means that our messages are heard.
Can you hear me now?
Excellent, fantastic. Yes, we can hear you well.
Yeah, I have trouble transitioning from Zoom to other platforms. Okay. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon to all. I think Lea already exposed most of the things that I wanted to tell you. I just want to say that, like Lea, I am really hoping that we can connect the local leaders forum with what we're hoping to pursue at COP30 in Berlin. I spoke already with colleagues from Bloomberg Philanthropies on how we here at the Ministry of Cities see that. And obviously, Minister Jade Filho will be meeting shortly, I think next week, with Mayor Eduardo Paes. And when I hope they will set up what common thought on how to move a strong message from the local leaders forum to Berlin, that it's aligned with what we are looking and seeing and hearing. I wanted to tell you that for us, both ministerials, the one ministerial on urbanization and climate, as well as the ministerial on buildings and climate, we are hoping to host both of them on the 11th. As Lea said, that's a promising indication, taking into consideration SDG 11. So yes, I hope we are going to be able to do them all on the 11th. I will have further news on that for you in a couple of days. And yes, on the 10th, we will see if we can use the 10th, which also is a day for cities and for the urban agenda in a meaningful way. But we will concentrate the main events on the 11th. Yes, we are, as Yunus knows, we are supporting the Cities Hub Pavilion at the Blue Zone, together with other pavilions that we are hoping also to either support or to help be together. We're discussing this with COP30 presidency to see if the allocation of where the pavilions are at the Blue Zone we trying to have what we're calling, and hopefully will become true, urban Mutirão neighborhood at the Blue Zone, where all pavilions related to the urban agenda, to the city's agendas, are all together in the same place. And we can then try to organize events that are coordinating among the pavilions. Obviously, each one keeping its own priorities and its own ideas. But the idea is to kind of have, if we're talking about mutirão, which is a word that I actually really like, and I hope you already all understand what it means. It begs translation, but it's a very, Brazilians usually know what it means. So that we have a mutirão of pavilions all together at the Blue Zone that would actually create this strong voice for the city's agenda, for the urban agenda, which we are hoping to achieve at COP30 in Belém. Finally, I was really happy to see that Leah connected what we are going to discuss at the round tables, and I think it is important for you to have an idea that Brazil and UN Habitat and all partners, we are working to have a ministerial that is more interactive, that has significant more content, that sends a message aligned with our ideas and priorities for cities and for the urban agenda. I'm not sure I missed anything. I just want to tell you that we are working very hard to make sure that Belém is a successful COP, and particularly that Belém is a successful COP for cities and for the urban agenda. For those of you who have heard Minister Jada before, you know my minister has always a strong message saying that yes, this might be the COP of the forest, the COP of the Amazon region for sure, and he's from Belém himself. But when he invites you to come to Belém, what he also wants is that this is a COP for the cities, and that's what we're working together with all partners, UNES, Leah, and everybody, Bloomberg Philanthropies, everybody's working to have this COP as a COP of the cities. A final word, apart from the pavilions that we're going to have in the Blue Zone and the Green Zone, there are a couple of pavilions outside of the Blue and Green Zone, okay? We are also discussing with those pavilions to see if we can get them to do a couple of cities-related activities on the first week. I'm not sure that we will be able to ensure that we will make it for the whole 10 and 11th, because of obviously all of this is the first days, everybody's starting, but we're trying to mobilize some interest from the insurance. There's going to be an insurance home. So we're trying to work something related to adaptation, disaster resilient cities there for cities. We are talking with the Oceans Pavilion that's going to be held in a really cool place in Belém. Is the House of 8 Windows, which is a beautiful old house in the early the port of Belém. They're going to have an Oceans House there. We're hoping to host a couple of events related to how cities will be affected by the rise in ocean levels, which won't only affect those cities right at the beach, but will affect significantly cities all over the world. And finally, there's going to be also a transport house, and we are hoping to host a couple of events on urban mobility in that transport house. I will give news to LGMA partners and everybody, so you are aware. And then you not only stay at Angá, where the COP is going to be held, but you can also walk around the city and visit these other venues that are going to be put around the city, and where we hope to host a number of cities, urban related events to reinforce the agenda that we will be pursuing within our own initiatives at COP and during the 2 weeks. Thank you. I hope. But I'm always ready to answer any question if you might have any.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think this really sounds very promising, very, very encouraging. Our only problem is how to manage that we will be able to stay in Belém, and how to make sure that we'll make the coordination in terms of logistical challenges. I know everybody is struggling, and I know Brazilian government will offer additional information soon, and we are hoping that this will be exactly in the spirit of a Mutirão in Belém, and pave the way for a brighter future for all. And Once again, thanks for all your leadership. With this in mind, I'd like to announce the session is closed. I see a couple of feedbacks in the chat box, but we'll continue. Many thanks for all your support, and look forward to connecting in the coming agendas. Take care.